Hey, 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗁𝗁 here, and what I want to do in this video is talk about three things to check if you find that your patient's pain keeps coming back again. Okay, so this is very common, and this was probably hands down my biggest frustration when I started out as a physio, and especially with complex pain patients where, you know, I can get changes very quickly with my hands-on work, with a few exercises, but then ultimately the pain keeps coming back again. Okay, so the three things that I found over the years, that it's always going to come down to one of these things. Okay, so the first thing is that we're really being too reliant on our hands-on treatment. Okay, so when we give the patient a novel stimulus or experience, we can change things. Okay, so again, this novel stimulus of hands-on treatment, it can create quick changes. But the problem is when the patient goes back into the real world, is the low tolerance that those tissues have to tolerate. There's a big mismatch than what we've been able to do with our hands-on treatment. Okay, so it's really this mismatch between the low tolerance that we've given with our hands-on treatment, which has brought about a novel change, and the tolerance that these tissues have to be able to absorb, okay, in the real world. Okay, so that's the first thing, is that we're probably not filling the gap between that graded exposure to low tolerance. Okay, the second thing is that we focus more on just strength training as a means in order to fill that gap. Okay, so then we say, okay, I've done the hands-on, that's not sticking, I'm going to give the patient some strength training exercises. Now, very often there's a problem with that also. Okay, so the problem with that is that there's such numerous ways for the nervous system and the brain to cheat, that fundamentally, if the patient's subconscious mind doesn't want to tolerate load because there's a perceived threat present, with a lot of these strengthening exercises, the patient can actually avoid loading the tissues that you need him to load in the first place. Okay, so you'll start to see the patient do things, these weird things. They'll do something with their rib cage, or they might like take their big toe off the floor and put all the weight on the outside of the foot. You need to be watching all these things with your patient when they're doing the exercises. And that's why we have to really understand with the patient is what's not doing its job, so then we can have the focus and the awareness to look out for these things when they're doing the rehab exercises. So my choice, personal preference with rehab exercises is to overcome this problem is I want to put the patient in a position where they have no choice but to tolerate the load. Okay, and we can manipulate the other joints in the body, we can manipulate length-tension relationships in order to do just that. Okay, so that's sometimes when we do strength training and it doesn't get the desired effect. If you really watch your patient, a lot of patients, when they're doing the movements, they're doing something funky. Okay, they're either lifting their leg, they're putting weight more on one part of the foot to the other, or they might be arching the back excessively or doing something funky with their rib cage. They're usually the big telltale signs. Okay, so what we need to do there is we need to bridge the gap from low to high level rehab. So we need to show the nervous system, the subconscious mind, it's safe to tolerate these loads. We need to start at the low levels, and then we need to build the patient up to the great exposure to then do the strength training. Okay, so we need to do that in a very progressive way to ultimately, which is graded exposure at the end of the day. Okay, but we need to do that very subtly. Okay, now where is going to be the culprits? As always, the answer is always going to be in the story. Okay, so then that's the third thing, is if the pain keeps coming back again, I want you to go back to your subjective assessment. Okay, and I've told a therapist this just recently, get back to the whiteboard, get back to the timeline of injuries. The answer is there somewhere. Okay, we have to ask better questions, we get better answers. And that's really why, if the pain keeps coming back again, is we cannot rely on our hands-on, or we cannot rely on our strength and conditioning. We really need a step-by-step system. Okay, because remember, knowledge without an ability to actually organize it and put it in at the appropriate places, it's essentially useless. Okay, so again, knowledge is not power unless we've got a way to organize it and then take that knowledge and implement it in the real world. Okay, so that's why we need the 8 pillars. Okay, we need to be really good with our subjective, that builds onto the objective, that then builds onto the communication, so we set expectations for the patient, which then allows us to design value-based treatment plans together with the patient. Then we use our hands-on, but we use our hands-on with the low-level rehab. Okay, so then you can see here we regress to graded exposure at the start. Then we need to bridge the gap to higher level rehab, and then we go to the strength training exercises. Okay, so it's all about just that step-by-step gradual exposure to the subconscious mind. Okay, so I hope that helps. The next time you have a patient that the pain keeps coming back, again, go back to the injury history, okay, and it's going to be one of those things, okay? There's going to be a mismatch with the hands-on treatment and the graded exposure. the strength training exercises you're doing, they're probably cheating. Okay, so go back to the injury history and find the cheats. Okay, and then put them in positions where they've got no choice to tolerate load. Okay, or better still, go back to your subjective assessment and get really clear on what's not doing its job, and that's going to allow you to focus super clear then. Okay, if you'd like some help with this, just drop a comment in the comments below. Just say, yes please, I'd like some more information. More than happy to get you more information about the mentorship program and how that can help you become that go-to physio. Okay, so if that makes sense, just say makes sense in the comments below. If you want more information about the